So we're playing with the white pieces, and this time we're going to switch it up. We are going to be playing knight f3, move 1, because I think this will offer us a more pure King's Indian attack. Because e4, there's sometimes e5. And this was suggested by a viewer in the Twitch chat. This is being live streamed at the same time. Shout out to Fate. Now, do we play e4 so soon? Me likey. I'm going to play e4. And I'm so happy I remembered. The last 2 in a row I forgot. No, it's not that I forgot. It's that I just like, I pushed wood. You know? I just made a move. It felt natural. I made it. And that was the downfall. So h5, I want to play h3. There's also h4, but with h3, I'm trying to argue that g5 is weak, whereas g4 isn't weak. And if they play h4, I'm going to play g4. And try to go for some space on the side of the board. But we have to consider, is that the correct call? h3, h4, we can take the knight first, so we're not even losing that. I think it's the right call. h3, the biggest problem for them is they don't even have h4 quite yet. Because I can always take it with the knight. If I took it with the pawn, that's different. And I think this is actually trying to set that up, where maybe h4 is playable in the near future. So now, they could actually be going for f5. Interesting. Let's play c3. And just play things normally. They're really being interesting. They're playing interesting moves. Rook e8 is weird to me because it weakens this f7 pawn considerably. And if we can imagine some sort of queen b3 followed by knight g5, it feels like we might just like win on the spot. So I want to play a quiet move for the next move, and I want to see if they go back to f6 or if they go knight f8 at all. Because then I want to consider queen b3. And queen b3, you don't have to worry about bishop e6 defending the threat because, well, they actually weaken b7 a fair amount. They don't go for any of that. They instead open up the center. And since they did that, I think we need to open up the center too, because I think we're better developed here. Their knight on h7 doesn't really inspire much. These two pieces are about the same. These two pieces, you can argue black's is slightly better placed, but I don't think it's enough to matter because these two kind of even each other out. Because of that, they're one tempo apart. Like this is one tempo apart of playing knight f6 as this one is from playing rook e1. Whereas we have a knight on d2. So I think opening the position a little bit might favor us. Do we do that though? Or do we just let the center be and go for some sort of like knight e1 f4? That's also really interesting. We can always play it cool for a move. Play a move like queen c2 or a4. a4 is like, I don't know why. I just am obsessed with this move. It happens a lot in these games, but you see this a lot in the Ray Lopez. You see this in the King's Indian defense when you play reversed colors, like when you play it as black instead. You'd see a move like a5. It's just a useful move if you're not sure exactly what to do because it gains space. It, prevents any sort of like a6, b5 expansions. And sometimes maybe you even go something crazy like a5. And the pawn can be a bit of a wedge there because it can develop our rook. I think I'm a fan of playing a4. Just waiting a move. Now, if they play something... Okay, this is normal. And now I'm thinking of this a5 that I was discussing before. Just gaining more space. That's what I'm doing. This is a quiet position. It's almost exactly symmetrical. And because of that, we should make note of what we can do to just make our position slightly more pleasant than our opponent. And I think this a4, a5 makes it slightly more pleasant for us. Because if they ever play b6 and we take, all of a sudden they've developed our rook. Okay, now they're going a little crazy with this g5 here, trying to open things up. And now I think it's time to blow up the center. Because now that they're finally opening up the king side, when your opponent plays on the side of the board, where do you play? That's how you can think about it. I want to play d4 because I want to blow up the center. If they play some sort of g4, I am happy to consider taking it. I think I have to take it because taking on h3 is a little concerning. So we'll take. But then we also get good moves ourselves, like knight h4, taking on e5 looks not so bad either. And if we ever imagine this diagonal opening, a6 could be a very annoying move, right? Because they can't take it and they can't play b6. They'd have to play something like rook b8, where we can take it still and open up the a file where they have a target and we don't. So now, do we play knight h4 or do we play knight h2 or like e1? If we play knight h2, we're pretty much only arguing that we're trying to target g4. If we play knight h4, we could be going for knight f5, and if they ever take it with the bishop, then it opens up the long diagonal for us, so that's the most interesting. Whereas knight e1, it might go to d3. Are we happy about that? Maybe. I think knight h4 is the most active and most principled as King's Indian attack players, so this is what I'm going to play. And a big reason is because I want to play knight f5. And I'm happy if they take. Opening up this bishop is one of the most important things that we can do as King's Indian players. So do I push? I don't think I push. I think I should take. This could be concerning. I'm seeing a lot of lines where they maybe even sacrifice on g3 here. So I think I have to play really accurately and actively. So let's start with this move. Knight c4. Knight c4 just attacks the bishop. And if they take on g3 here, my plan is actually just to take on e5, getting rid of their powerful kingside defender. And if they go here, well, now they've retreated, and now this bishop takes g3 is extremely unlikely. And I think we can get away with knight f5 and be quite happy with that. So now knight f5 comes, and I think we're in good shape. But we had to be very accurate there, I think. Because one inaccuracy, and we could have gotten mated with some sort of taking. Bishop takes with queen h4 and queen h2 on the way, which is really, really concerning. I don't think we should be too upset here. One thing to consider is bishop takes, pawn takes, and d5, trying to get more central control. But I think that's the wrong way to play. If they're trying to go for some kingside attack, which they have been trying for the past few moves, as it appears, then all of a sudden changing things out of nowhere doesn't inspire much. Yeah, I'm actually considering moves like knight h6 here. Knight h6 looks like it wins. Because if they go king h8, we take on f7, win the queen. Knight h6, if they go king f8, then we have e5. And e5 attacks the knight on h7 and the bishop on f6. So this is a funny little move, but I think this wins on the spot because of e5. Tactics, people. Tactics. Yeah, I gotta really be worried about my time. I think things should be kind of speeding up now that we're in a winning position after e5. At least I think it's winning. But some care is definitely needed here. So now let's take the knight. They had to choose between their bishop or their knight. I think taking the knight maybe was the right call because it keeps their fianchettoed bishop. But at the same time, there's too many concrete threats. Like right now, there's a threat of taking on f7 directly by checks. Here we can take. Do we want to take? Queen g8 check, king e7, queen takes f7. Looks like checkmate. This looks like checkmate. So I think we're going to go for this instead. Queen queen g8 check, and queen takes f7 checkmate. Good job. Yeah, just because d6 was covered here. So yeah, that was a good game, and I think that actually shows the strength of playing the knight f3 move order and why I'm going to probably prefer it from here on out. Thank you to Fate, who's one of the people watching on Twitch, because yeah, deciding to switch to the knight f3 move order I think is extremely helpful to maintain the true spirit of the King's Indian defense, but as an attack instead. So yeah, that was a really interesting game. I think one thing we should do is go into analysis here and see if we could have improved on our lines. H3 felt fine. Looks like everything went okay. And there's not like any dips towards black being better, which is nice to admit. I wonder if this A4 was good. A4 was fine. Good. And was A5 good? A5 was good. All right. I'm happy to see it. So again, even though this move looks a little strange, just going back on why I played it, let's just say they play something like B6. This is horrible for them because all of a sudden they've developed a rook, and also, of course, they've created weaknesses. And there's not really a comfortable way for them to deal with the pawn. Like, what if they play A6? Well, now they're never playing B6 or B5 without us taking en passant and again developing our rook. Plus, this pawn is not really that... It's not weak. It's not weak at all. We actually can play moves like B4 now and even consider moves like B5 or even D4. And our space is just so annoying to deal with. This knight doesn't really have a good route to get in the game at all. So that's a key point of this A4, A5 is in these E4, E5 positions, because essentially this has become one, except with fianchettos instead of like a Rui Lopez or an Italian. These A4, A5s, always consider them, but of course, focus on development first if you feel like your development has reached its maximum. Whereas, you know, for me, I believe it has in a position like this. All of our pieces are very well placed, even the bishop on c1. Then this a4, a5 makes sense because it's not really a waste of time. So knight df6, queen c2, g5. Yeah, this is where it felt a little weird. And yeah, I could have actually considered a6 here. And this was actually a problem for them because we have moves like knight c4, which is surprising to me. I guess d4 isn't as great, but this still looks quite good. Generally, we want to open things up, and now this is exactly what I meant of sometimes this a6 can just randomly be played, because if they take it, all of a sudden, look at that. Ooh, yucky. And if they don't do that, well, they should probably play some sort of rook b8 to worry about us taking, but now in a position like this, well, I think we've gotten everything we wanted with the rook on the uncontested semi-open file. And, well, a7 immediately falls if we want to take it. And top move isn't even taking it. It's just knight c4, which says a lot about the position. I think that's mainly it. Maybe knight f3 would be good. Yeah, knight h4 is actually the only move to be above +1 advantage. So it's significantly better than the other ones. And the reason why is because, well, again, the knight is happy to go to f5 in some cases, because it just opens up our bishop. Like, let's just imagine, I'm trying to find a neutral move for our opponent. It's hard to find a neutral move, actually. Maybe knight g5 is semi-neutral. The problem is I would like to play knight f5. I'm not sure if it tactically works, but let's pretend there's no tactical issues. Moves like this could be considered a little bit more. Here it doesn't really work out because, again, there's actually tactical issues relating with e4 here. But if they're not able to play a move like e4, then we can see how strong this bishop becomes. Of course, again, there's e4 in this specific scenario, which is why maybe knight f8 is a better example, where if knight f5, taking it opens up the bishop, right? That's a better example now. Great. Do we need to do this though? No. This is just one of the many ideas of playing that h4. It also is, again, the more active square, and it's just a little bit more annoying. So that's going to cover it for this game. Just feel free to play knight h4. Just make sure that they don't get some sort of like bishop f6 and taking. That's actually really key. Or bishop e7 and takes, because then your structure just gets completely ruined. If you need to sacrifice a pawn somehow after knight h4, don't do it of taking on h4. Do it always by playing knight f5 and letting them take, even if they take twice, because at least it opens up your bishop. Whereas if you play something like knight h4 and you lose the pawn, your structure also gets damaged. That's a key piece of information for both King's Indian attack and defense players, and that will definitely cover the game.